Okay, so now it's my turn to talk about a game, and the game I am bringing today is called Steel Legion. It's for the NES. It's developed by the Eon Star Interactive, which is François Brodeur. I hope I pronounced it right. He was the lead developer and did most things. And it's published by Broke Studio. It's been available since September 2024. There is a demo on itch.io as well. The price is around $9.99. And there is also a physical cart, which is about $50 US. It's a Metroidvania sort of game with run and gun and exploration, which goes in all directions. So you can go up and down and left and right. It's scrolling. And the story is that it is a dystopian 2004, and there's an oppressive AI that commands loads of androids and robots and tries to wipe out humanity. And you take the role of the commander, Bionic Commando. I don't know if you remember that game.
Yeah, and I was thinking that the Steel Legion, at first sight, it very much reminds me of Bionic Commando.
It does.
I haven't played Steel Legion, so I'm gonna hear from you how it plays and whether it did it remind you of Bionic Commando when you played it?
Yes, it reminded me of the Commodore 64 version of Bionic Commando that I used to play. It's got the same sort of palette for me. I don't know. It really did give me those strange vibes of already seen, and then it did remind me a bit of Bionic Commando.
But does it also have that harpoon mechanic? Not sure how to call it.
No, the bionic arm. No, the protagonist yourself does not have a bionic arm.
Okay.
So you've got different weapons that you can collect, and kind of other collectibles. But none of them is a bionic arm.
All right.
So you have to make your way through this urban city, which is decadent, and it's all destroyed. The colors are very grim, and that's maybe why it reminds me a bit of the Commodore 64 because of the palette color. I know Rita would have something to say if you were here about the browns. But yeah, it does remind me a bit of that palette. You've got the basic set of movements, so you can move with the D-pad, and I played it with the NES on the Mister. You can jump, you can shoot, you can switch weapons, and obviously you can pause. And then obviously if you're on some platforms, not all of them, but some of them you can drop down through the platforms and obviously jump up through them as well. Very, very simple mechanics, very simple game. There's a very small story. There's not a lot of text. I think the developer did not want to put too much story in. I did read that he prefers just action. But there are small, I won't say cutscenes, but for example, you move up to an NPC and you press A, and then the NPC will say something. It will come out in a dialogue, and there's small, very, very small and short dialogues in there as well. But it does contribute to create a bit of the atmosphere. I've read lots of. Go ahead.
I haven't seen this game. I'm just looking at some pictures, and because you mentioned the atmosphere, but it's a bit hard for me to figure out what atmosphere it has, because the pictures I'm looking at right now are completely different, one level from the other, and some seem like a dark atmosphere, really post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, that's.
And others have these bright colors that are maybe more cartoonish. So I'm a bit confused.
Yes, it does reminisce a bit of the old comic books. So,
okay.
Yeah, comic books from the 70s. If I do recall correctly, when I used to read them, they all have the similar sort of palette.
Like you mean like superhero comics or something?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I used to read them. Yeah.
Oh, now I see.
But also, yeah, it has a set of different levels. I've played the first level and the first boss. Didn't go further on too much, but and I'll explain why very shortly. But the general impression that I've got, it is very grim and gritty. The characters and NPCs that you find are mostly robots, and and the humanoid ones that usually have an aspect of like one of the 80s cartoons like Gundam or Pat Labor. Well, Gundam, maybe not so much, but they do have that sort of 80s vibe as well in terms of look and feel. Right, I did look at a lot of reviews, and I'll explain why again in one moment. And I think a lot of people are raving about this game, but for me particularly, this game did not gel very well. I've done a quick look on YouTube, you can go and see that. I can start explaining why it did not gel. In terms of mechanics, as I said, it is a scrolling platform, so you can move left and right and the screen scrolls. As the screen scrolls, you'll notice that at a certain point, the enemies disappear when you reach a certain threshold on the screen. And that basically creates some sort of troubles because, for example, you have an enemy that is shooting at you, and basically you can move, let's say, out of the range. You'll still see his shot coming through to the screen until you reach this point where then it disappears because he probably gets despawned, but you should still be able to see it, right? Because he would be still shooting, I guess.
You mean the bullet disappear or the enemy?
The enemy despawns and the bullet keeps on going, but he despawns too early when he should still be visible.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds weird.
Yeah, so that's happened to me more than once. And also there are enemies that, for example, go out of the range. Say there are some enemies that move, like some sort of weird, I don't know, I call them like robotic squids. You follow them, let's say, as they move forward. You turn around, they go back, but then you never see them again because I think they despawn when they go out, so they never reach that place again. So if you turn around and you say, I'm going to shoot them when they come back, they don't come back anymore. It's very bizarre.
Weird.
And then, in order to make them spawn again, you have to move further left and trigger the respawn of these enemies, and then they will start again. So it has these sort of janky little mechanics that don't really work properly.
I wonder if it's like a technical limitation or sort, or if it's intended, because that sounds weird.
Reminds me a bit of Trophy in terms of gameplay. Some people like that. I used to like it, but I think I've grown out of it now, and maybe this is a limitation of the platform, but I've seen other stuff done on the NES, and it seems like some titles are very, very polished and work really well. And this one has this feel where you're like really catapulted back in the 1980s and really trying your best to get everything out of this game and trying to move on. Another fact that didn't really work well for me is the respawns. So there's lots of respawns, and as soon as you go out the screen and go back, immediately everything's respawned. Not only that, but sometimes you're like shooting some enemies and you kill them, and as soon as you've killed it, another one spawns. So you know how I hate respawns. So
I've been thinking about it recently, about your hate for respawning.
Yeah.
And so do they respawn when you kill them, or just when you change screen and go back?
Both. Well, some enemies respawn immediately after you kill them. Some enemies respawn when you go out of the range and go back in.
Okay. Well, I'm not really a game developer, and I'm not familiar, especially with console games development. But I've been wondering recently if this commonality of respawning when you re-enter a room is due to the fact that maybe the game has to like load another area, and then it's not that easy to save somehow the information in memory that you have killed already something, and it's much easier to just reset the area completely. But if then the other thing that they respawn when you kill them, that's definitely intended if you're not leaving the area.
Yeah.
So that's another thing.
Yeah. Some of them, like I call them octopus, at the start of the first level, that you kill it and then it comes down again immediately afterwards, and it keeps on coming. Another one where there's a little like a small tank, I call it, I don't know, and as soon as you kill it, another one just drops from the top immediately afterwards, and it just, for me, just impedes the gameplay. Hence, that's why I basically reached the end of the first level, and then I didn't really feel compelled to go on, actually.
Is there anything else other than just, platforming and shooting? Is there...
Well,
can you collect weapons and stuff like that?
Yes, you can collect a lot of different weapons. The first one I think you find is the long shot. So this is another thing that I did not understand. So you start off with a shot, and you see the bullet when you fire the weapon. For me, it looks like it should reach a certain point, like in terms of space inside the game. So the first enemy you encounter is like a dude or an android, a robot, who's shooting you like sort of fireballs. So what you try and do is jump up on the platform where he is, and as he's shooting, you try to jump to avoid his shot, and then you shoot him. It's a very simple mechanic. You can't go too close because then you can't jump because it's a platform. And I spent quite a long time there just trying to shoot, and I didn't understand how many bullets he would take. But after a little while, I understood my bullet weren't reaching him. I mean, you can classify that as a part of the gameplay, and you have to learn it and use that to your advantage or understand how it works. But it was a bit of an impediment. That is offset quite quickly by finding the first weapon. I think is a long shot. Then I think you find a grenade, which then opens up exploration paths, because then some walls that are not really clearly signposted then become destructible via the grenade. I don't know, it's not another one of those things for the Metroidvania genre where I have to figure out that this wall that looks exactly like the other wall, which is not destructible, can be destroyed. Start adding all these things up together, and I was quite frustrated with the game, actually. So, however, this game has a really good soundtrack, has very 90s rocks jam vibes, if you know what I mean, and it's a chiptune, obviously, and it's very energetic music. If I recall correctly, I think the developer made the music, and the music is like the central part from for the game development. What does that mean? It means that maybe he did the tunes and he was inspired by the tunes to make certain levels, because it made him think about certain scenarios and scenes in the game. That's quite interesting, and I've never heard that before. As I said, the game is really hard. I would just say that, and people
I've heard about that. Yes,
they call it NES hard, and that should give you an indication. You will die a lot. Another thing is when you get shot, you get pushed back, and I think, okay, fair enough, but then most times you get pushed back on some spikes, so double the trouble.
Can you just continue when you die?
Well, once you die, you have to start over again.
You can just... right. About that difficulty, I wonder if maybe that's the whole point of the game, because alright, I haven't played it, and I can see that if I just look at this game, some footage, it does seem a bit shallow to me. But so then from this kind of game that's basically just a shooting platform, jump and shoot platform, I would expect, at least nowadays, either some depth in the map, for example. You have a lot to explore, lots of places to explore, maybe some gated exploration elements. I don't know if maybe this game doesn't actually have gated exploration elements, but something that keeps you want to come back to it. Or otherwise, maybe some depth in the weaponry, in the characters, something that you want to try again, the levels with different weapons, or a weapon shop.
Yeah, well, I like shops. Love shops, yeah.
So, but this game does have any of that? Or
well,
not?
So in terms of gated exploration, it sort of does, because when you access different weapons, you can then access different areas. The only thing is, these areas, as I said before, they're not signposted, so you can't really see them really clearly. Like, it's not a door and you're missing like a card, and you find the card and you say, I can go through that door now. No, it's like a wall, and then that wall becomes destructible with the new weapon you find. There is a lot of stuff, as I said, to collect. In terms of depth with weapons, yes, there are quite a few weapons. I don't remember how many right now. Let's say there's a handful of weapons, and they're different and they're useful, and they make a big difference in the game. I think one of the good things the developer has done, beside the music, is to actually add some modern game design sensibilities, and that comes in the form of the persistency of the weapons that you find after your death. So you die, and then you start again, and you've still got
everything you found.
Everything that you found, yeah, okay. That's right.
No, but then I can imagine that you can get hooked on this game, and if it didn't have these, I was gonna say then the other charm could be like having a good playability if it plays smooth, and the challenge itself, that maybe people get hooked on something being difficult and learning to get past, to get forward a little by little. So not every game needs to be finished on the first try, like nowadays, maybe. But
you're right. But I think for me, it's just me. I know that lots of people find it really good and have given it stellar reviews. I find myself in disagreement, because I don't know, maybe the genre, maybe my stubbornness in not wanting respawns and that sort of stuff. Also, I think what people say, and I also echo the same sentiment, is that it would be good if there was an in-game minimap, because you get lost really quickly. So there is, in the physical edition, there is a little map which I'll try and put on the video. But otherwise, it's left up to you to remember where you're going. So maybe it's a good idea if you buy the ROM, maybe you can write down where you're going and then create yourself a map, and that will help a lot. There is also a lack of crouch, so you can't really crouch when you're with your character. It's a design choice, I'm guessing. So that creates some other problems, because the enemies seem to always not be at your level. So you have to jump over them. You can't just shoot them, I'd say most times, really. I think this is a minor gripe, really. This is just probably my lack of skill. And then at that point, I think I was just like, As the developer says, this is his first step into game development for the NES, and that's fine. So you can see that in terms of what I've just talked about. In my opinion, I think that's fair, because it's his first game. So I really hope that Dev will actually make another game and make it even better than what this is.
Maybe I have last question for you.
Yes.
How many bosses have you encountered?
Just one.
Okay.
Which was like a sort of big mech, and he's accompanied by another little robot, and you have to avoid him and the shots. I beat him, but it took me a while, because you need to really learn the pattern, because his shot, for example, goes downwards and then up.
That is often the case with boss fights.
Yeah, I don't have anything to complain about the bosses, really. It's a boss, it's difficult, so that's fine. Let's get better at it, and then you beat the boss. I think it's the grind for me is going through the level, and I want something more nowadays out of these games for some reason. But I do appreciate it, and I know the developer is, it's his first game. So
in that case, that's impressive.
Yeah, but much better than I could ever do.
I'm not sure if I would check out this game though. It's a $10 game. I always say there is always
You want free games.
No, I always say there is always room for one more platform, but perhaps not shooter platform. Maybe that's not exactly my favorite kind of platforms. But I'm looking at the page and something weird, because it says, like a good Metroidvania, there's a lot to collect.
Yes.
And then it says collectible checklist. And it mentions 4 areas. I don't know how the game plays. Are they levels, like you have to finish one area, then you go to the other? There's a city, subway, sewers, warehouse.
Yes.
So they're in order.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a collectible checklist.
Well, they're in order. If you look at the map, they're all connected to the map.
Okay.
But don't forget, it is a Metroidvania, so you need to have the means to reach these areas, to be able to access these areas.
Weird thing is that they say there's a lot to collect, and then there's a collectible checklist, and there are like 3 things, 4, 5 maybe per area. That's not really a lot to collect, and they are always the same thing: ability sphere, energy tank, armor upgrade, almost the same in every area. It's a bit confusing.
I found the long shot and the grenade. And then there is, like a...
So these are something else?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, energy tank, I suppose that is like the big heart you find, and I think that gives you a little bit more life, which is actually quite generous in this game. So they do give you quite a lot of life, but, it's expected by how hard it is. I think that's it for me. Steel Legion, if you're like very hard games for the NES that are, reminders of the 80s and play exactly like that, with a small improvement in terms of keeping your weapons that you find and unlock in a Metroidvania fashion, and you can go around and explore, then this game is for you. For some reason, it didn't gel with me, but that doesn't mean it's not your cup of tea. Try the demo, get it on itch.io, have a game, see if you like it. And if you do, then, support the dev. I'm sure he's going to make something else.
Great.
All right.